Al Ferguson at Queer News Tonight, and we are at the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus State Convention. And we're looking at many of the issues that are going on in the LGBTQ community, and we have a special interview here at Queer News Tonight. And of course, no introduction. He's been in the headlines. The LGBTQ community has been following it closely. Hillsborough State Attorney Andrew Warren, who was removed, suspended, you're going to help me with the right words, by Governor DeSantis. Thank you very much for joining us at Queer News Tonight.
My pleasure.
Well, as you know, the LGBTQ community continues to have consternation with our governor, and you seem to be an example of the storyline of how the governor is managing communication and getting what he wants in the state. For our viewers, help summarize what occurred in Hillsborough County for you as state attorney.
Well, I was in my second term as state attorney in Hillsborough County, and last August the governor suspended me, alleging that I had done several things which were not true. And we filed a lawsuit in federal court. It turns out that the governor was targeting me for political reasons, and he was really upset because I spoke out in support of abortion rights after the Roe decision was overturned, that I had spoke out against the criminalization of transgender Americans and stood up against that discrimination. And those were things that the governor said were evidence of that I didn't deserve to be the state attorney anymore. So, as I mentioned, we filed a lawsuit in federal court. Last month, the judge issued a ruling, and the ruling was crystal clear. I hadn't done anything wrong except serve my community the way I told them that I would, that the governor's allegations against me were totally false, and that the governor broke two laws. Let me repeat that for a minute. The governor broke two separate laws, federal law and state law, in suspending me without any legal basis in a politically motivated attack.
You know, Mr. Warren, do I have permission to call you Andrew?
Of course.
Yeah. Your case, we have followed closely at Queer News Tonight, and much of the national LGBTQ community has followed the situation in you being state attorney in Hillsborough County. We're watching these kind of attacks across the board in Florida, and very powerless people trying to stand up to the governor, including the trans community, including drag queens, including businesses like Orlando Philharmonic or Broward Center, school boards, librarians, much less teachers or students. We're watching this kind of orchestrated attempt to legislate, in many instances without any legislation from the governor. You are a powerful seat in Florida that he attacks. Why do you think he's doing this? We understand what you said in terms of his reaction, but beyond the issues, why do you think he's taking these kind of actions to literally get his way?
Well, because he's doing this to serve not the people of Florida, but to promote his own political brand, to serve his own political agenda. This is because he wants to run for president. You know, it's no secret at this point. And rather than doing what true leadership is about, solving problems that make people's lives better, he's taking the easy route. He's telling these convenient lies. He's being divisive. He's demonizing people who disagree with him. And his base politically eats it up. I mean, they don't care if he hasn't done anything to address insurance issues in the state, if he hasn't made our educational system better, if he hasn't helped our economy, because he's attacking people that he disagrees with, that his base disagrees with, and that is good for ratings, it's good for his political ambition, but it's bad for Florida.
You know, I'm curious, when you got the news, did the governor or the governor's office ask you to suspend any of the communication that you were doing? Did you get any of that kind of notice in advance?
No, not at all. And in fact, after a full and fair trial on the merits, the federal judge that the case was in front of pointed out that not only were the governor's allegations against me totally false, but it would have taken a moment's investigation. Like they could have picked up the phone and just to confirm that they were false. But as the judge pointed out, they didn't care about the truth. They cared about telling their own alternative facts so that they can sell this false narrative to their base to say, oh, we are taking care of business in Florida. Again, fighting these culture war divisive issues that really don't help anyone except DeSantis' own political ambitions.
Yeah, it's an illustration of woke comes to die in Florida. It's an attempt to try to prove that. I'm curious, when you got the news, however you got it, whether it was a phone call or a letter or an email, what was your first reaction coming out of the blue that you were suspended from post? What was your reaction when that happened?
Well, my reaction was probably not what you'd expect. My reaction was, how is this going to affect what I'm doing in the office today? Because it was a really important day for us in the state attorney's office. We were taking to the grand jury an indictment against 2 rapists and murderers for cold cases from 39 years ago. So I had promised the victims of these heinous murders that I would supervise the grand jury. I would be with them to tell them when the indictment was returned against the men responsible for killing their loved one. And I got an email that told me I was suspended. And my first thought went to, how do I make sure to deliver on the promise of my job to make sure that those victims and their families got what I told them they would get, which is an indictment returned against the people who killed their family member.